thank you. I'm not used to so many people clapping for my being arrested, but the first time I was arrested was about 20 miles outside of Savannah, Georgia, which is where I'm from, for possession of alcohol as a minor. I was 20 years old, and I was riding shotgun in my best friend's car, and my brother, who was 18 at the time, was in the back seat. And all we had on us was a case of Natural Light in the trunk, and none of us had had a single drink all night. The problem is, it was the first time I had smoked weed in like 6 months, so I was so high that they were convinced that I was on ecstasy, and that we all were. And so they searched the car for what must have been at least 45 minutes, and they had 4 police cars and 5 cops tearing through my friend's car, through empty fast food boxes, crushed cigarette packs. I mean, we were each handcuffed on the hood of a separate car. And my brother asks in hysterics, because this is the end of the world, what are we being handcuffed for? Shut up, we'll tell you in a minute. Okay, so partially it's past the time, because we can't do anything about this. And partially, because I'm extremely stoned, I'm singing this song that goes like this. I like coconuts, you can break them open, they smell like ladies lying in the sun. If I had my way, I'd give a coconut to everyone. So that was my mind frame, basically. I would give a coconut to everybody. I had no idea why I was being arrested, for wanting to give coconuts to everybody. But 6 hours later, when they release us from jail, they do so to my father, who is the only person I've ever met who actually looks for police officers when he's high. That the only thing that cops are really good for is for giving directions, right? So he looks for them. We're barely out of the police lot, when my dad pulls a joint out of his never-ending front pocket stash and lights it and says, idiots, don't get caught. You have to be smart to do drugs. And then drives us to Waffle House and buys us all breakfast. So, before I skip to my 4th arrest, I want to give you 3 reasons to trust me. Okay, the first one is that I have never cheated on anything, except for once. In 1st grade, I cheated on a spelling test on just one question because I wanted to see what it felt like. And then a big one in my book is that I was a regular Torah reader at my synagogue for years. And the 3rd reason is I went to college for a 1.5 years, and then I dropped out because I decided I wasn't learning enough for $30,000 a year. But I took a semester off and I went back to another school because I wanted to give it another shot. And I went back for three semesters, and then I decided that I was ready to pay off this exorbitant amount of money that I had incurred as debt for this education that I didn't get. So, my 4th arrest. Now that you trust me, right? So I had finally paid off this debt by working 80+ hours a week, like 2 restaurant jobs, for almost 4 straight years. And I finally finished paying it off, and I moved back home with my parents in Savannah so that I didn't have to work and I wouldn't have to pay rent for a little while I figured out, what was next. Clearly that got old really fast. That's not the best way to enjoy your freedom, is to move back home with your parents. So I decided I was going to go for a road trip. And I woke up one morning about 5 o'clock, really early. I decided I was going to go visit my ex-girlfriend, who lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's about a 4-hour drive away. So I baked myself, a roll of cinnamon rolls and packed some bottles of water. And I'm like creeping out of the house so I don't wake up my parents. But of course my dad's awake, and he stops me at the door and hands me a little bag of weed and was like, "Have fun, son, enjoy your road trip." So I'm like, "Thanks, Dad." And I put the bag in another bag, and that bag in the trunk. And, I hit the road. So, I've been driving for maybe 45 minutes. I'm into South Carolina. The sun's just barely coming up, and there's nobody on the road. So I'm just cruising, and I know I skipped 2 arrests, but at this point I've been arrested 3 times, and I've been pulled over many more times than that. So I don't speed anymore. I put the cruise control on 70, which is the limit, and I'm just enjoying the open road. Finally freedom, and this is what I've been missing, and what I need, and what I've been entitled to, and so I'm even watching the speed limit signs because they change rapidly in the southeast. That's one way that they get you, because they know that we're all just criminals on cruise control. So, another way they get you is the radar detectors, of course. So I see a cop, just gunning on the road up ahead of me, and there's no one around, so I wave as I pass, and instantly I'm like, that was a terrible idea. So I start getting paranoid, and I'm checking my rear view, so in the southeast, I don't drive out here, so I don't really know, but in the southeast there are these, I call them fake forest strips on the side of the road to give the illusion that you're driving through the wilderness and it's all nice, but really it's just a thin strip of trees on each side of the road, and then there's just another road on the other side that you can't see, so that the police can hide and trap you. Anyway, so I'm driving down the road, and also in the southeast, I don't know if you've ever been to Florida or to, maybe you guys have been to Georgia, but if you've ever been to Florida or New Orleans, you know that the southeast is essentially swampland, and a lot of the roads specifically have been built over swamp. And the people, you can kind of tell the mentality there is very reptilian. And, that is exhibited perhaps better than anywhere else in this police officer who's sitting on the side of the road, waiting for an unsuspecting driver who's not paying attention to just drive by so he can snatch you up. And so, of course, I'm thinking about all this, and I was right. The next thing I know, this cop is behind me, and I check my speedometer. Okay, I'm going 70. It's fine. And I look up, and I am rapidly approaching an 18-wheeler who's obviously not going the speed limit. So normally I would just slow down and let the truck speed up. But I look in my rear view, and I can't even see the front of the cop car because he's so close to me that his hood is I can't even see it, right? I don't know where it is. So I put on my blinker, and I'm going to pass the car, the truck. But when I check my blind spot, the police has moved over, and he's just sitting in my blind spot so that I can't pass. So of course he puts on his lights, right? And I pull over, and the next thing I know, he's asking me to get out of my car. And I'm like, okay, what's the problem? Why did you pull me over? And he asked me to get out of the car. So I do, I comply. And it's not really that I have, I have this innate fear now that the police are just going to exploit their power at my expense. And so I just comply, and I get out. And the next thing he asked me is if I have any drugs in the car. And I'm like, okay, it's 6 o'clock in the morning at this point on a Tuesday in the middle of November. I wasn't speeding. Why are you asking me about drugs? I'm not trying to be a hard ass or anything, but I had completely forgotten about the weed at this point. It was really a last minute thing that my dad slipped into my car. I was not planning to get high today, so it was like, no, I don't have drugs in my car. But as soon as I said that, my eyes must have been like, oh shit, because the cop is like, okay, I've spent many years in police training to know when someone's lying, and I think you're lying. And so you have 2 options. You can either let me search your car, or you can wait for the drug dogs. I say, listen, I'm pretty sure that's a false dichotomy. Later, he would call me a smartass for saying this, but it might have been because I explained it to him. I said, my years in school have taught me to know when somebody doesn't understand something. I said, I don't think it's an either-or situation, sir, but if it is, and then I spelled it out in case his car was recording audio of this incident. If it's either you search my car or you wait for the drug dogs, we're going to have to wait for the drug dogs. So the next thing I know, I'm standing on the side of another southeast highway, waiting for the drug dogs. Of course, the cop has returned to his car and ordered me to stand there so I didn't drive away. And my mind starts wandering at this point. I mean, I'm waiting 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The sun has come up at this point. Cars are starting to pass on their way to work. And I know that I'm about to be trapped, right? And so like any animal, my mind just starts wandering frantically. And I start thinking about how I've spent my whole life in the Southeast, where I've been arrested in 3 different states at this point for completely similar and petty crimes. And essentially just because I've been moving fast from place to place and doing things that I think will lead to a meaningful life. I've stayed up late working while everybody else is asleep. I've relegated my diet to rice and beans for 2 years at a time and slept on the floor for 4 years so that comfort wasn't like my main end, because I want to be an artist and I knew that means that I have to be prepared to be poor. So I know that this man, I'm sure he's a really nice guy, but he doesn't understand this kind of mentality, you know? I'm standing there and I'm just kind of looking around, and in the Southeast it's not the same. The sky is really different. So it's not like here where you feel like you can just kind of reach up and touch the clouds. It's like the sky is like miles up there, and these clouds are huge and really long, and it's like they're not moving. It's like they're frozen, and they're slowly making their way out to the Atlantic Ocean, but it's like you could take a nap and wake up and like there they are, the same clouds that you saw when you went to sleep. And so I was looking at these clouds and thinking about how they mirror this mentality of this place, you know, and how this officer is sitting there, like I'm hustling and I'm trying to like make something of myself, and this cop is sitting there all day long gunning for people to just snatch us up. And anyways, I'm lost, I'm getting really angry, and I have to pee, and I'm trying not to look super anxious because, of course, I'm nervous. And so the cop shows up while I'm lost in thought, and with the drug dog. And the first thing the dog does is jump through my open window and go straight for the cinnamon buns. And as soon as that happens, I do some quick math, and I'm like, well, there goes $4,000. And because the next thing the cop says is, well, that's grounds to search your car, which it actually legally isn't. But of course, once they search the car and find the drugs, then they found the drugs, and so I go to jail, right? And so I realized that I'm essentially being arrested for 3 things. 1, my dad gave me weed. 2, I waved at a police officer. 3, a dog jumped through my window and ate my cinnamon buns. 57 hours I was in jail. It did cost me over $4,000. I had to go to a rehab course for 20 hours of community service. I lost my license for 1.5 years. You know, all of these dire consequences. I even moved out here and couldn't get a Zipcar account because my South Carolina still had some, I don't know, monopoly on my license. So when I finally got out, I called my ex-girlfriend, and I said, you know, I'm sorry that I didn't call you on your birthday. I was actually, you know, I told her the whole story. I was going to surprise you. And she just starts laughing. And I'm like, I have no idea what's so funny. I'm like, why are you laughing at me? This is the worst thing that has ever happened. And she's like, you're such an asshole. Today is my birthday. The whole time, it's typical Evan. If I just remembered her birthday, none of this would have happened. So shortly after this incident, I moved out here, and I haven't had any problems with the law, and I still smoke weed, and I have not once ever again forgotten Lindy's birthday.